Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex here on the South Side. It's week number 2 of the NFL season as the Steelers try to bounce back from a 30-7 loss at the hands of San Francisco. Mike Tomlin has a lot on his plate talking about that and also some of the injuries that occurred in that game, specifically Cam Hayward, Deontay Johnson, and others were banged up. We'll hear what Mike Tomlin has to say about that. And Cleveland, a team coming off a win in their Battle of Ohio, 24-3, rather impressively against Joe Burrow and company. And they also had an injury this week as Jack Conklin, their outstanding tackle, is out for the year as well. A lot of injuries around the NFL. Right now, Mike Tomlin is ready to address the media. Let's go to his press conference.
Good afternoon. As always, man, I'll start with a review of our last performance. And obviously, it was a stinker. We stunk up the joint, myself included, first and foremost. And I think part of moving on from it is first just acknowledging that component of it. As I mentioned post-game, you can outline a performance like that in a lot of ways. San Fran got their agenda done. We didn't get our agenda done. That was a gut feeling, a reaction. I thought the tape displayed that. There were certain things about how they played that we had a level of anticipation for. I'm sure there's certain things that how we play that people have a certain anticipation for. I think they did their high volume things better, obviously, than we did ours. And so, you got to carry that stench for a while when you have a performance like that. Coupled with the fact, man, that it was opening weekend kind of adds to the sting, but we're big boys. We can take it. We better roll our sleeves up, man, and shift our focus toward our next opportunity. We better not forget what happened. We better learn lessons from it. And that's what yesterday was about for us. On a Monday, win or lose, man, we're always trying to assess what happened and why, review our processes and our planning, how we divide the labor up, et cetera, and then plot a course in an effort to move forward. And so win or lose, that's the focus. Obviously, based on the last performance, we had a lot of work to do yesterday. First, just assessing what happened and why. And then secondarily, man, analyzing the planning component of it, how we allocated our time from a preparedness standpoint, what we asked people to do, their level of skill and ability relative to that. And so I'm just giving you an outline kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about when you perform like that. It's all of us. It's planning, it's coaching, it's playing. We're all in this thing together, man. That's this game at this level. And so we take it on the chin like grown men and professionals do. Hopefully we learn from it. We make appropriate and necessary adjustments, whether it's to our planning or our process or our agenda, division of labor, et cetera. We'll do that. We won't overreact. We won't have a knee-jerk reaction, but it does require our attention and our time. Thankfully, we got an additional day this week. In preparation, we're going to use that time wisely, hopefully, in an effort to prepare our guys. Specifically about the game, as I mentioned, on offense, man, there were a lot of ills, but the chief ill was possession down football. When you're not successful on possession down football, you don't give yourself a chance to establish rhythm, to establish run game, to highlight certain matchup components that you might like, to diversify your attack, and all of the above. And so volume is king. We didn't have enough volume, and it was because of possession down failure. But again, as I mentioned after the game, man, I never want to take away from the professionals that we compete against. They had a lot to do with it. We understand that they had a really good defense, and particularly their front and their continuity within their core players, and their ability to wreak havoc on games and so forth. And so we know what they were capable of. On the defensive side of the ball, man, we had to minimize their run game and Christian McCaffrey, man, and we failed there. He popped a big one, and it kind of changed the trajectory of things. Obviously, largely, I would like to see us do a better job, but that big one was an exclamation point. But largely defensively, I thought communication was not up to snuff. Our pre-snap movements and adjustments were not sure enough. We're not solid enough. We looked like a group that was in in a loud environment for a first time, or like we had some new people. And so that's coaching as well. We got to be mindful of what we ask guys to do under certain circumstances, and we worked our tail off to combat the crowd noise component, the newness component of some of our pieces in terms of how we communicate and adjust and deal with in-game circumstances, and we just didn't do a good enough job of those things. I didn't think we did a good enough job of punting the football. I thought that was a component of it, particularly early, the field positioning component. Their first 2 scores were on short fields. You know, if you're not getting off the field on possession downs and you're net punting it and good, chances are your opponents are going to be on short fields. When they're on short fields, it drives up the propensity to score. There are analytical studies that outline that drive starts relative to scoring. We all understand that in this business. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that component of the game. Was also a significant letdown for us. There were some positives, but, you know, no need of mentioning them in this setting. We're not looking to feel good about ourselves. We're looking to get right. And so we got some work to do in an effort to do that. We got an AFC North familiar foe coming in on primetime television in an effort to do that. We're familiar with them. They're familiar with us. And so, man, it's going to be AFC North football. I'll talk about them for a few minutes. Obviously, if you're talking about the Cleveland Browns, man, it starts with Mr. Chubb. What he is capable of doing, the way he controls a game, and so forth is a little bit different but similar to Christian McCaffrey in that he keeps them on schedule, he controls the climate. If we're doing anything in this football game, man, we got to work to minimize that guy's impact. That is challenging because of the talent that they have around him, quite frankly. Starting with their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, man. This guy is really talented, man. His ability to extend plays, his ability to attack a defense vertically, his ability to see the field as plays get extended, his arm talent in terms of throwing the ball downfield. He's got a myriad of eligibles that are challenging. Amari Cooper is top-notch. Njoku has grown up in that program. It's been cool to watch his maturation and development in all elements of their game over the time that he has been there, run game, passing game, et cetera. They got some new pieces that provide variety. They're just a challenging group. Can't say enough about Peoples-Jones, man. That's another guy who's kind of grown up within their program and kind of just carved out a niche for himself continually over time. They got a solid group up front, top-notch guard play, et cetera. They got a quality veteran offensive line coach, man. We got a full plate in front of us in terms of some of those things. On the defensive side of the ball, they've been a top-notch four-down group in terms of personnel. They went out and hired a veteran four-down personnel expert in Jim Schwartz. Man, I've known him for a long time. He fits them. They fit him. They get after people with that front four. They picked up Za'Darius Smith to partner with Myles Garrett. They always got a top-notch partner for Myles Garrett. A number of years ago it was Olivier Vernon. Most recently it was Clowney, and now it's Za'Darius. We respect Za'Darius. We know him, obviously, from being in this division. He's a dominant run-down player. He's also adept at passing, rushing the passer. He's a guy that's an outside-inside guy. They'll move him around. They'll move 95 around. It'll be difficult to nail down where they are and work to minimize them from a protection standpoint. They got some front flexibility that aids them in that regard. They got good second-level linebacker play. They got some continuity there. They got Wu, who they drafted out of Notre Dame, man, who is a sideline-to-sideline tackler, man. He covers a lot of ground. Walker and Taki round out their second-level group. Those guys share reps at times in a variety of packages. Schwartz knows what he's doing. They're connected in those ways. Man, they got a veteran secondary. Those guys have been together now for a length of time, and particularly their corner group. Ward and Newsome, first-round draft picks, man, guys that have grown up in that program. To be blunt, I thought the corners won the game for them last week. Their ability to stand on the line of scrimmage, man, and challenge the Cincinnati Bengals, I thought was really impressive. They stood up time and time and time again. It allowed their safeties and linebackers to get focused on minimizing, mixing in some of the run game, and I thought that was the catalyst for the performance. And so got a lot of work ahead of us, man, a familiar group, a good group, a group that's looking to go 2-0 in the division, I would imagine, and we got Monday Night Football. I'll pause and talk about some injury things because we got a few to discuss. As you guys know, Cam is out. I don't have a lot of details in terms of scheduling, in terms of his surgery or what that might look like. I'll give you an update on the other side of the surgery when we get a complete totality of time and what it is and so forth and things of that nature. Obviously, losing Cam is significant, but that's what team is about. Replacing Cam is not a one-man job, man. It is a multiple-man job and a coach's job because it changes your schematics when you lose significant players. And so we all acknowledge that and we all run to that, not away from that. That's an opportunity for us to show what team is about. Things that we hold near and dear, like next man up. We have an opportunity to make that real when we're faced with the adversity that comes with attrition in this game. And so that's our mindset. That's our plan. Multiple people, schematics included, in that. Deontay Johnson, obviously, with a hamstring injury, is probably unavailable this week. We were waiting to take a picture of that, man, to get a realistic look at how long that might be, but I think it's reasonable to assess that he won't be available to us this week. Feel real comfortable with our in-house people, man, Gunner and others, in terms of elevating and being ready to carry the load and participate. Other injuries associated with play that we're more optimistic about, particularly because we got an additional day and a half of prep. Chooks is in the concussion protocol. Pat Frymouth may be limited at the early portions of the week. James Daniel, Larry Ogunjobi, to name a few, in terms of some bumps and bruises that may limit them at the early portions of the week. But again, we got an additional day, and we'll definitely take it and lean in on this next opportunity. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, beyond what Cam brings just from a playability standpoint, everything else about who he is and what he is how tough is that?
You know, I don't imagine we would lose that. You know, Cam is not the type of guy that moves away from his teammates, whether he's participating or not. And so, you know, some of the intangible things, some of the things that you get day to day outside the white lines, we'll still receive the benefit of that. But make no mistake, there's enough for us to do replacing his tangible contributions, his play, his presence, and so forth.
Mike, what have you seen from Leal and Loudermilk in his stead?
Man, I've been really impressed by the growth and development and what those guys have shown me throughout team development. Not only Leal and Loudermilk, but younger guys like Benton and others. I thought that was one of the strengths of our group coming out of team development, the depth in competition and the tough decisions that we had to make in the defensive line. And it won't be a long period of time before we get a chance to call upon that. And so we'll get a chance to see what that depth looks like in play.
Is Armon Watts, what's he bring? Is he a guy that...
He certainly is a guy that's under consideration. He's a guy that brought veteran experience, played a lot of ball in Chicago a year ago. I thought he really warmed up to our environment as he got a sense of what we were about and what we were asking, and that's why we continue to do business with him. But there's a reason he's been an inactive type, man. He's continually getting up to snuff with what it is that we do and technically and in the nuances and the detail and so forth. And he had a good week last week, and we'll see where the week leads us this week in terms of making decisions about who we use and how we divide the labor up. But certainly he's under consideration. He's a veteran guy that's played some ball. That's why we kept him on our 53.
Mike, Kimmy was pretty clear that he didn't play the way that he wanted to or expected to Sunday. What about him tells you that he can bounce back and have a better performance Monday?
Just his commitment. You know, there's football justice. When you work at it, man, you generally get good things that come out of it. This is a guy that's fully committed. This is a guy that works his tail off. And largely, man, those guys create their own fortune. And so that's my general tenor about the trajectory of him and his career. but also in the short term. It's reasonable to expect guys that work the way he works and prepares the way he prepares to bounce back from negative performance. Individually and collectively, I expect this group to do similar things.
Mike, what did you like what you saw from Allen Robinson, and does he assume a little bit of a bigger role with Deontay?
You know, he has a pretty big role. Obviously, it's subject to change based on matchups and schematic game in and game out planning and so forth. That's why we went and got him. He's a steady presence, man. He's a professional. He's highly competitive. I think all of those things were evident on tape, and I don't think that surprised any of us. And sure, it's a reasonable expectation that his role might grow due to game circumstances, particularly if you're down a significant contributor like Deontay.
Like some of those top draft picks, Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr., had some limited snap counts this game. What went into that decision?
Nothing really. All of those guys are performing well. We expect those guys to be contributors not only over the course of their career here, but this year. We dipped their toe in the water in week 1. We tried to have limited roles in an effort to control what it is that they were preparing for. And so if you got a narrow focus in terms of your preparation, you tee up the potential for a nice high flow and performance, and then we build from that as we move. We feel comfortable with our depth and competition across all positions, and so that afforded us an opportunity to do that with those guys. No negative reports on the trajectory of their performance or how they're assimilating themselves into this journey. You should expect their contributions to continue to grow, whether it's Broderick, Joey, Benton, Darnell Washington, Herbert. I imagine that the same applies to all of those guys.
What goes into your defensive front communicating faster and establishing the control of line of scrimmage against a team like the Browns that loves to run the ball?
You know, ball's ready, so are we. We live by that mantra. The offense dictates the pace of play. They do. They have the football. And so our general mentality is we are always communicating as quickly as we can and readying ourselves for actions with that understanding.
One of the knocks last year was Kenny Pickett started out slowly, as did the offense, and that kind of caused some problems. So is anything being done to adjust the play calling or adjust the pace of the game so they wouldn't be as sort of lethargic as they were?
Every day of our lives, but not in reaction to what transpired last year, just professional due diligence. It's our job to be thoughtfully non-rhythmic. It's our job to work our tails off to make sure that we get off the fast and fluid starts. Obviously, we didn't do it in week 1, and so we're preparing for week 2.
Mike, was Pickett banged up at all on that first sack, and did he get evaluated for concussion?
Level of banged up, I'm not certain of. You know, there's so many protocols in place now, independent medical specialists and so forth. I would imagine the quarterback position has less of my eyes directly than it used to because of it. So I didn't have direct eyes on what it is that you mentioned. Obviously, I saw it after, but there was no hesitancy from the independent medical experts and so forth. He didn't express any, symptoms relative to that play that you mentioned, so it was a non-discussion for us.
Was there anything you put your finger on regarding his relative inaccuracy to what we saw?
We're not looking for comfort or excuses. The tape is who we are at this juncture, and so we're going to work to change the tape that we have control over. That tape's in the bin. That's his, it's mine, it's ours. Monday night is a little bit different, and that's why we're working.
You mentioned how it still starts with Chubb, but you have now a 7-game sample size with Watson as their quarterback under Stefanski. How do you find their marriage between the pass game and the run game with him being woven in now, especially with an offseason?
I don't know, man. Ask Stefanski. Maybe he'll provide an answer. We're not in control of that mix, that desire, what it looks like week in and week out, or largely from a personality perspective, how they choose to divvy that up. I know what we need to be prepared for. And National Football League, man, you can't lose in the guts of the thing in the line of scrimmage. We gave up a lot of yards to a significant back a week ago. It's reasonable for us to maintain that posture, to respect Mr. Chubb. He's gotten us in the past. They've allocated a lot of resources in terms of what they pay their guys up front, the talent that they hold. The interior people specifically are tandem. And so that's why I said what I said.
It's been one game, but how would you say Schwartz has changed the character of what has generally a pretty familiar defense?
Again, this is one game. I think their interest in him was because of his ability to do some of the things that they've done in the past and utilize some of the talent that's special. And so I don't know that they were looking for significant differences. Obviously, there are always going to be differences. Different people bring different agendas and perspectives, but I don't know that there's anything through one body of work that strikes me like a lightning bolt at this juncture.
Tape of what went wrong against McCaffrey help you prepare for Chubb a little better?
I'm sorry?
Does having tape on what went wrong against McCaffrey help you prepare against Nick Chubb a little
Man,
better?
we've got enough tape against Nick Chubb. You know what I mean? Man, we played him a few years ago up there, man. We had this mantra, we was going to slow down Mr. Chubb. Man, he reeled off about a 40-yard run like on the second play of the game. You know, we got respect for that guy and them and their ability to run the football.
Mike, after the game, Patrick Peterson was talking to us, and he said he's really confident in the veterans in this group, not only to kind of turn the page and help this team move forward, but to correct all the mistakes that were made on Sunday. Why is their leadership just so important, especially moving forward after a game like that?
I just think anytime you got been there, done that guys, they're able to provide perspective for those who haven't. And that's what veterans provide. They provide it in bad times. They also provide it in good times. Oftentimes, you're defined by how you handle success more so than failure. You don't get to the National Football League as an individual unless you're able to overcome some adversity, bounce back from injury, bad performances, et cetera, smile in the face of adversity. Veterans help you deal with the good times, keep your feet on the ground, remaining focused, et cetera. That's why we consciously added some of the quality human beings who happen to be veteran football players within our program, specifically in the last offseason.
How do you assess the rotation of inside linebackers that you guys used? And Quan mentioned that there needed to be better tackling. Is that something that you guys can improve in a week during practice?
Certainly. I believe that we can. I'm not painting with a broad brush and having knee-jerk reactions and drastically altering our approach to business based on one performance, like I said in the opening. And so we got 3 varsity linebackers. We're going to utilize those guys based on circumstances and matchups, like I've said, transparently, and that posture has not changed.
Mike, you mentioned the depth with Cam and Deontay's injuries. Will that cover that, or will you look to the outside for defensive lineman or receiver?
We'll obviously, we won't turn a blind eye to the outside. That's just appropriate business. But we're also comfortable with the depth and the competition that we've been able to assemble here in team building.
When you opened up talking about trying to use Monday to figure out what went wrong and why and learn from it, what did you figure out based on what you saw for San Francisco's ability to find Ayuk so effectively? Was that a matter of you guys trying to take away so much else, or was that part of their agenda to find him?
Certainly, some of his exploits had to do with our desire to minimize Kittles and Debo and Christian, but that's what makes awesome units challenging. They got a lot of capable people who are able to rise up and make plays when others garner attention. And so I don't think any of that is surprising to us. His evolution, particularly over the latter half of last year, is kind of reflective of that performance. And so we tip our cap to him, man. He made a combat 50-50 catch for a touchdown. He made some other significant plays. He played a really good football game.
How do you view Dan Moore's work at right tackle if he would have to move?
Again, I'm not ready to assess or talk about hypotheticals in that regard. There's a number of guys that I spoke to in terms of the front part of their week being altered, but it doesn't necessarily change our trajectory in terms of planning or their inclusion in the plan. And so Chooks, James Daniels, Larry Ogunjobi, Pratt Fryermuth, as we sit here and make plans for participation, it includes them.
Like, having the chance to look at the tape, how did you feel like your offensive line played? It seemed like they were able to minimize Bosa, but maybe had some trouble with some of the other guys.
I thought they did an awesome job, particularly from a protection standpoint, minimizing Bosa. And really, I thought from a protection standpoint, we were really solid until the very end when we got really one-dimensional. Upward and onward with that group, man. Upward and onward with all of us. We realize how we performed. We own it. We're ready to get back out there and get back in the world of the competitors.
Mike,
Joey Porter played at 7 snaps, I think, solely in the dime. Is that going to be his role for now, or do you expect more?
That was his role last weekend, and they did such a really good job of staying on schedule that it was probably less than we anticipated. And oftentimes you guys are asking about divisional labor, the amount of exposure of talent and so forth. We have intentions and an agenda, and sometimes game circumstances change those agendas. And that's why I described the game the way I described it. The 49ers were able to play to their agenda and their plans, and we were not. Obviously, we had intentions of playing Joey more than that, but you better have him behind the chains and off schedule a little bit more than we had him off schedule. If not, then you'll play 7 snaps of dime because you don't play dime on 3rd down and 2. You know what I mean? And so same thing on offense, man. You want to run the ball at people. You want to wear people down with Najee and Jalen and so forth, but if you're taking 15 snaps through 2 quarters of football because you're 3 and out, you're not winning possession downs, that's not going to transpire. And so I just wanted to pause and be really transparent about what I'm talking about when I'm talking about agendas and why division of labor may appear to be what it was, and it might not reflect our intentions or our personality, et cetera.
What do you need to see from Desmond King this week to be able to feel comfortable for him being game day active?
You know, I'll let the week tell me, man. I'm not worried about his level of conditioning or health. We checked that box before we acquired him, but knowing what to do, how and how much he communicates, infusing him into a group that already includes some new people. And so I'm just talking out loud about some of the thought processes that go into the discussion about when and how we infuse him into it.
What about the Browns secondary impresses you so far, just what you've seen? You know about Ward and Newsome, but Delpit was a big factor in their win over Cincinnati last week as well.
Taking nothing away from Delpit and McLeod, I think played a lot because Thornhill was unavailable. They all played really well. But I thought if you wanted to summarize the game in a small number of words, their corner ability to stand up and man-to-man on the line of scrimmage versus Cincinnati's receivers was the story of the game on either side of the ball.
Anyone else?
Just one clarification on Cam and his injury. Was that completely in-game, or is that at all nagging him from last week?
In-game.
That was on the play where he hit Purdy towards the end of the first.
I don't know when it happened. I had a couple of conversations about him feeling less than ideal in-game. So I'm not sure about the sequence of events, but he got injured in-game.
Anyone else? All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin, joined now by Missy Matthews. And Missy, Mr. Chubb is coming to town. 3 times he referenced Mr. Chubb, which gives you the amount of respect the guy deserves.
And he's one of those guys, when they talk about facing the Browns, you see them twice a year that you have to game plan for and try to stop. As he mentioned, a game in Cleveland where it didn't go so well, but you lose Cam Hayward. You don't know for how long. Coach Tomlin did confirm he's going to have surgery. After the surgery, more of a timetable, but that's never something that you want to have. Not only can he help stop the run, a team leader and really the heartbeat of a young team, and he's just seemed to lead the way for this team throughout this whole process.
Yeah, I mean, Cam Hayward is essential to that. Now people have to step up. Mike Tomlin will be relying on a lot of the rookies he has here, or second-year players who've been around, but they're going to have to do it collectively, plus schematically, as he said. We're just getting started here. When we come back, Missy and I will talk about those injuries that Mike Tomlin referred. Also, what they need to do in this Monday night matchup against Cleveland. The Steelers have had a lot of success on Monday. They need that to continue after that 30-7 loss against San Francisco. So hang around. We're just getting started here on the Mike Tomlin press conference, and thank you for watching here on all the Steeler digital platforms and KDK+. Missy and I return right after this.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
Frustrating as a loss like today, knowing there's so much optimism for you guys coming out of the gate to start the season here.
Yes, it's really frustrating because I know that we're a way better team than what we put on display today. San Fran played a great game. We beat ourselves in a lot of areas. And like I said, when we're a talented team, we have the talent that we have is very frustrating.
What was it that they were doing that just was maybe not what you guys anticipated, expected, or was it more just execution on your side?
It was more execution on our side. I think they did everything we thought they were going to do. They didn't do nothing special. They played San Francisco football, Shanahan football. We lost weighty downs early. They ran the ball, had big plays, running the ball and throwing the ball. So, we weren't playing a typical game, and it was a lack of execution for sure.
They had you down closer to the line of scrimmage a lot. Were they just running away from you, or what wasn't going on to get you around the ball more?
Honestly, I think most of the time I was down that we're running away from the down safety. Even when I wasn't in the game, I think they're doing that as well. A lot of teams do that. It's just scheme. Yeah.
What are you guys going to have to change before heading into the next game?
We ain't got to change nothing. We just got to go out there and execute. Like I said earlier, the only reason why we lost this game is lack of execution, and we lost 150-50 ball. You know what I'm saying? I think there's too many people, they were doing what they wanted to do. We didn't stop nothing. We didn't allow them to play outside of their strong suit, and when you let a team play into their cards, into their hand, the result is similar to today.
Minka, you were talking about communication issues in preseason. Was that still an issue maybe for this first one?
No, I don't think so. There was that one play where it was actually my fault. I tried to check it late and we busted. But for the most part, I think we were talking. We were communicating out there. And when I say lack of execution, it's more so lack of dominating.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Man, I've been really impressed by the growth and development and what those guys have shown me throughout team development. Not only Leal and Loudermilk, but younger guys like Benton and others. I thought that was one of the strengths of our group coming out of team development, the depth and competition and the tough decisions that we had to make in the defensive line. And it won't be a long period of time before we get a chance to call upon that. And so we'll get a chance to see what that depth looks like in play.
Mike Tomlin talking about how to replace Cam Hayward. Never an easy assignment. Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews back with you. And so they have some guys who they were real happy with in their performances, especially a guy like Benton. We saw him last week a couple of times. All of a sudden the role expands for these young guys, and they're going to have to, do what they have to do because it's not an easy assignment. And I would also think Larry Ogunjobi, who's been banged up a little bit, but he needs to have more time on the field and more significant plays.
Right, and Larry Ogunjobi is one of those guys that Coach mentioned might have a lighter load in terms of practice at the earlier portions of the week, being that it's Monday night and they have an extra day. But Benton, how much did we see him during the preseason, which was good to get those in-game reps. But Armon Watts, he was a healthy scratch on Sunday. You also have Braden Fiocco, who was with them all offseason on the practice squad. So there are a lot of options, but still replacing Cam Hayward is not going to be a one-man job. This is similar to last year, week one, you lose TJ Watt. It wasn't a one-man job to replace him. Different positions, but still just what he means and what he's able to do. I'm sure Joel Bitonio of the Browns is very happy that Cam Hayward will not be playing because usually Cam has his number.
You mentioned Fehoko. He's a guy who, that's his reputation, occupying people, making it easier for people around him. And I think that's why the Steelers were interested in him. So he can be someone who immediately comes in and helps. He has some experience, unlike a guy like Benton, who's still probably trying to figure out his way out there.
Yeah, and they have the time to play with, maybe doing different things in practice. They start tomorrow. They don't have to do an injury report until Thursday because of the Monday Night Football game. But I think, Coach echoed exactly what defensive coordinator Terrell Austin said at the end of training camp as they were getting ready to cut down to 53. There was so much depth and so many good guys who stood out and who continued to grow on the defensive line that there were hard decisions made. Fehoko, though, luckily they did cut him. He wasn't on the 53. They were able to get him back on the practice squad. So there is some good in terms of, having guys that have been with this team throughout the offseason, training camp, preseason. But again, it's Cam Hayward, and until he has that surgery, we're not going to know exactly how long he's going to miss or be out of this season.
And Mike Tomlin said while he's interested in these guys on the roster, he would also consider all options looking outside the organization. This is part of that conversation.
We won't turn a blind eye to the outside. That's just appropriate business. But we're also comfortable with the depth and the competition that we've been able to assemble here in team building.
And Missy, I think that's one of the things they did in this offseason. They gave themselves options when it came to depth. Guys who have resumes like Armon Watts, like Fehoko, guys who've actually been in there and done that. But it's going to take a collective effort. And it's also going to take, as he said, schematically addressing this situation, trying to neutralize a good running team like Cleveland. And they ran for over 200 yards against Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's not going to get any easier in terms of having to stop the run in week 2. But like you said, Omar Khan made it his mission to provide depth and competition throughout the entire roster. We saw that come to fruition. And now, you're going to kind of test what you were able to do and if it will work when you lose a key player such as Cam Hayward.
Yeah, and we should also point out it's not just Chubb. It's also Elijah Moore, a guy who they brought in, and he's been doing different things for them, sort of like maybe a Connor Hayward, not maybe to that degree in terms of being a hybrid player, but he is a guy who lines up in the backfield. They've been using him in different positions as a wide receiver and a running back.
Right, and Coach Tomlin went through the list of eligibles, as he likes to call them, on the offense. Amari Cooper, there's just a number of guys that can hurt you in different places, especially when you are able to establish the run and have a balanced offense and have to commit so much to stopping Nick Chubb. Those guys usually can have some, luck as well in terms of being able to be playmakers.
He referenced Christian McCaffrey and Nick Chubb the same way, saying it's a little bit different, but same concept. Last week, Mike Tomlin said tackling was going to be a key, and obviously they didn't do a good enough job against Christian McCaffrey in that, specifically the 65-yard run. They led the league in yak yards for 5 years, but Nick Chubb was third when it comes to contact after, or yards after contact. So you got to make sure you get more than one guy on him.
Yeah, I think especially on that 65-yard touchdown, the second play of the second half with Christian McCaffrey, you just saw a number of missed tackles, but it wasn't just specific to that play. It was throughout the entire game, and every defensive player in the locker room following that loss said the same thing. Coach Tomlin echoing it today, and I think even communication that he brought up, or lack thereof, amongst his defensive unit, that's something that also will go into play in being in the right position or knowing what gap you're supposed to be in to help tackle and get these guys down. And Nick Chubb also, is not an easy guy to bring to the ground.
No question about it. They start off with Nick Chubb, and that's, although the Cleveland coaching staff has really gone away from that philosophy against the Steelers at times. Kevin Stefanski has passed more than he's run the ball specific to Pittsburgh. I don't think that's going to happen this week because the opportunity is there without Cam Hayward. On the other side of the ball, we have some injuries to talk about with Cleveland as well. We'll get into that and more as we continue live right here. It's the Mike Tomlin press conference on KDK Plus and Steeler digital platforms. Don't go away.
For a long day?
Yeah, anytime they're running the ball for 200 yards or whatever it is, a long day. We just couldn't get off the field. That's always going to make for a really long day defensively. I think it was, 40-plus snaps in the first half just as defense, and that just means we weren't getting off the field in critical moments and just not able to stop the run. And that's priority number one every single week. Just lack of playmaking. I think that's just what it boils down to. Obviously I'm going to have to go back and watch the film and be honest with ourselves and see where we can improve. But just right here and right now, it's just lack of playmaking. They made more plays than we did in those weighty downs.
TJ, it felt like especially early, you guys maybe struggled to get pressure on Purdy. Just what were they doing to keep that pocket clean?
I mean, credit to them. They did a good job keeping him clean, like you said. He doesn't set super deep in the pocket. He gets the ball out relatively quick. Got the ball in the hands of his playmakers, and they made plays for him today.
At the same time, you had Cam go down, Leal go down, Lario's still injured. How much difficult was it to get in a groove, so to speak, knowing you had so many guys different rotating in?
I'm never going to make an excuse for that, and we always have the next man up mentality, and it doesn't matter who's in the game. The standard is the standard, like we talk about all the time, and today it definitely wasn't enough.
Is there anything you can point out, too, just it looked like they were more ready at the very start of the game? Is there anything you feel like you can
I don't know. I don't know if there's one thing that I can say right now. I mean, you guys watched the preseason. We were able to start fast in all three phases of the game, and today was definitely not like that. And, I mean, even to be able to stop the bleeding, come out at halftime, and have them have a two-play, 70-plus yard drive is not acceptable at all. So it's a matter of starting fast, not just in the first half, but also coming out in the second half.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
Just his commitment. You know, there's football justice. When you work at it, man, you generally get good things that come out of it. This is a guy that's fully committed. This is a guy that works his tail off, and largely, man, those guys create their own fortune. And so that's my general tenor about the trajectory of him and his career, but also in the short term. It's reasonable to expect guys that work the way he works and prepares the way he prepares to bounce back from negative performance. Individually and collectively, I expect this group to do similar things.
Mike Tomlin with some big-time praise there for Kenny Pickett, and still believes this guy is exactly what they need after a bad performance. It wasn't just him, it was the entire offense. Everyone had a bad day at the office. But when we look back at that performance, he got a lot of pressure, especially up the middle, which is something that I didn't necessarily expect, although San Francisco, that's what they do in their front seven. They make it tough on people. He had to move a lot out of the pocket. I thought his accuracy was not very good, but he believes he's going to bounce back in this game. And if you know Kenny Pickett, he's as competitive as they get.
He's probably upstairs in his little office
Yep.
that the Steelers made for him near the coaching staff. But yeah, I agree. And I think too, you know, even just that pass to Freiermuth that could have potentially been a touchdown. Pat went one way, Kenny was thinking the other way. And he even said, you know, we just weren't on the same page there. And I think it was a major letdown after the preseason. You acknowledge you were not going against first team defenses the entire time, but they built such a confidence and almost such a swagger about them as a unit that I think when this performance in this game started snowballing and going downhill, it was almost shocking in a way how bad it could be. You would think that, especially when they got that touchdown at the very end of the first half, okay, it's still 20-7, but there's time to put something together, get some points, but unfortunately it just never came to fruition.
Yeah, they kind of neutralized Bosa, who was coming back after missing all that time before he signed that big contract of his, but other guys were very effective, and it affected his accuracy. Kenny Pickett, that's the first time I've seen him be this inaccurate, and again, I'm sure he owns that. He's working hard to change that, but there was pressure, and it makes a big difference. I thought that guy, Fred Warner, had a huge day. His inside linebacker play is elite, and so is Greenlaw. They have really good players just about everywhere, and there could have been a third interception. But Pickett will rely on the guys he has available to him. One of the guys will not be Deontay Johnson. So, Missy, he's out with a hamstring. Those can be tough ones to deal with, but he won't play this week, according to Mike Tomlin. So who picks up the slack there?
Well, I think Allen Robinson started to be somebody that Kenny was leaning on in this first game. You know, they spent a lot of time once he was picked up in free agency, but also George Pickens. I just think he needs to get all of these guys involved again, similar to what we saw in the preseason, specifically that first game in Tampa. I also just think, you know, the Freiermuth thing surprised me a little bit. Those guys just seem to be on the same page so much since Kenny took over as the starter last year as well. But again, the run game, 10 attempts all game. I understand they were playing from behind, but when you go 3 and out, it's hard, but you still need to establish the run and be physical.
Well, you mentioned Allen Robinson. He's a guy who has veteran experience, had a huge year in Jacksonville a few years ago, and I think Mike Tomlin knows he has the kind of resume that can help this week, especially against Cleveland.
You know, he has a pretty big role. Obviously, it's subject to change based on matchups and schematic game in and game out planning and so forth. That's why we went and got him. He's a steady presence, man. He's a professional. He's highly competitive. I think all of those things were evident on tape, and I don't think that surprised any of us. And sure, it's a reasonable expectation that his role might grow due to game circumstances, particularly if you're down a significant contributor like Deontay.
Tell you, another guy whose role may grow is Calvin Austin. We saw 6 targets, 6 catches. He was very good about what he was doing, and maybe there's going to be more number 19 this week.
Yeah, you saw that as soon as Deontay went out with that hamstring injury. But, you know, the one thing Coach Tomlin kept preaching during this press conference was how the Browns defensive backs were the guys that won the game against Cincinnati. So when you're down Deontay Johnson and you have guys stepping up, Gunnar Olszewski was a healthy scratch as well. I'm sure he'll get a helmet this week. You have to think what pressure is going to be on that group to perform well, knowing the defense that you're going to be facing on Sunday or Monday.
2 number 1 picks in that cornerback division there for Cleveland. They're very good, and they did stick with all the Bengals wide receivers, including Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They didn't have much to deal with in that game. So that's going to be the challenge. When we come back, we'll talk more about the Browns and Steelers coming up on Monday night, week 2 of the NFL season. Browns at 1-0, the Steelers trying to get even with them with a win on Monday. We'll talk next.
Gear up with game day necessities at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline gear, jerseys, terrible towels, memorabilia, and custom exclusives directly from the team. You can also gear up online at shop.steelers.com.
Past the 4th down past the Freiermuth in the end zone in the second half. Did you have to rush that, or was there a breakdown somewhere else that led to that play?
No, it was, you know, Pat saw it differently than I saw it. So it was just, you know, us communicating and being able to, you know, connect on that.
Can you walk us through the pass that was picked off that was intended for Connor York?
Yeah, Tampa 2. You know, Fred was running down the middle with Connor. Wanted to put it up and over and give Connor a chance. We were playing from behind. At some point, you got to push the ball down the field. And that was it, just taking a chance down the field.
How hard is that when you're trailing, and you had talked a lot about the coverage kind of dictates where you go, but sometimes you need to make a play down the field. Do you feel like that was an area where you guys?
Yeah, I mean, you get down behind like that, it puts you in situations where you're, you know, forcing things that you shouldn't be forcing, or you're trying to make a play, you know, down to get us back. You know, that's why the key is to stay, you know, in the game and not get down like that where you're trying to run and gun and score.
Coming off the preseason and everything, was it disappointing to come out and play that way?
100%. You know, no doubt about it. Has to be a lot better. Needs to be a lot better moving forward.
You guys have talked about cohesion and being on the same page. So how frustrating is it that on that 4th down play that you and Pat weren't on the same page, that you did see it differently?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that happens. Pat saw it one way, I saw it the other way. It needs to be a fix, but obviously you put a lot of time in. But you know, we'll get it right. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about us staying together. Playing balanced football, being able to do what we put a lot of time in to do.
How much time goes into studying with what went wrong in this game versus preparing for your next opponent next week against division rival?
It stays the same. You prepare the same way. You handle losses and wins the same way. You look at the game the same amount of time. Nothing really changes. But you know, the miscues need to get fixed quick.
Kenny, what was Sam Fred doing to be able to take those big plays away?
I don't think they were letting us get behind them at all, really. You know, they were making us, you know, kind of throw it underneath and, you know, catch and run type of deals. So doing more stuff, getting guys on the run and puncturing the defense, getting north-south if they're going to play some soft coverage and not let us get behind them.
How important is it for you to have an even-keeled demeanor throughout the week here, so the guys look at you and realize it's only one game?
Yeah, it's very important. Like you said, it's one game. You know, another tough test coming in here Monday night. So things we need to get fixed, quick, and you know, get back on track Monday night.
Experience the legacy of the Steelers like never before. Step into the Steelers Hall of Honor Museum at Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of Steelers history, rare artifacts, and interactive exhibits. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
To be blunt, I thought the corners won the game for them last week. Their ability to stand on the line of scrimmage, man, and challenge the Cincinnati Bengals, I thought was really impressive. They stood up time and time and time again. It allowed their safeties and linebackers to get focused on minimizing, mixing in some of the run game, and I thought that was a catalyst for the performance.
I would agree with that after watching that game. Mike Tomlin talking about Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, both #1 picks, and man, there was press coverage from the start, and the Steelers are going to have to deal with that, especially those younger guys like Calvin Austin if he's in there and doing that kind of stuff. So that's a matchup, and it also allows some of those guys on the line of scrimmage and the edge rushers to do their job if everything is covered.
Well, and after Joe Burrow signed that massive contract to have that type of performance, just 82 yards, took 2 sacks. But for Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, you don't typically see these kind of performances from this team, the Bengals. But Jamar Chase, 5 for 39 yards, T. Higgins, 0 out of 8 attempts. And it just felt like things could not go right for them, obviously happening at the same time. But when you go back and watch, it just felt like the Browns really had their number, which they typically do in Cleveland. I think it's 6 of the last 7. They have won for whatever reason, but yeah, not a good performance. And clearly the conditions weren't great, but that happens every once in a while and probably more than once a season.
And it also helps to have guys like Myles Garrett, who got some help with Zadarius Smith. They brought him in. They lost Jadeveon Clowney, who ends up going to the Ravens. And this is a nice compliment. He's a guy who has a big history. Pittsburgh knows him because of his original stop in Baltimore, but he's been in the NFC, and he's a guy who could come in and immediately help them.
And with Jim Schwartz coming in, for the defensive coordinator, coach, speaking highly of him as well and what he's able to do in terms of just changing some things up schematically to help let Myles Garrett be Myles Garrett. You saw that in week 1.
Yeah, so Cleveland comes in here with a lot of momentum, winning that game pretty handily, 24-3 last week. They did what they wanted to do, ran the ball, and they took all the playmakers away from Cincinnati on a day that Joe Burrow would rather forget. That's the first time in his career he had less than 100 yards, and his passes were very inaccurate as well. So when we come back, we're going to talk about the injury situation. In case you missed it at the top of this broadcast and the Mike Tomlin press conference, a lot of people on that list. We'll break it down when we come back. Bob Pompiani, Missy Matthews right here on Steelers.com as well as KDKA+.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
I know you still have to watch film, but what do you feel like the issues were tonight?
I mean, you could point out a lot of issues, but it's a we didn't execute on third down. That was big. We had a lot of 3 and outs. Their scheme of their D linemen was just jetting upfield and just disrupting a lot of the double teams. I mean, it played a factor because we couldn't really get into the secondary, so secondary was a lot of free hats. In the run game, screen game, I mean, there's a lot of free hats in the secondary. So, I mean, you can just name a lot of stuff, but it was just a team thing we just got to fix.
Najee, you guys talked a lot in the preseason about being on the same page, about having cohesion. Did you feel like that was missing today in this loss?
I think we just need to get better. Yeah, I think we just need to get better.
The stuff you guys need to fix, does any of it feel similar to what bogged you guys down at times last year, or does it feel completely different this year? Some new faces.
No, it's different this year. I mean, look, we're not blinking. It's like Mike Tomlin said. We're not stressing. We're not worried about it. It's the first week. They're a great team. We had a game plan. We didn't execute it.
You talked a little bit about not converting third downs, the lack of production on third down. But what about first down? How much does that kind of bog down offenses too when you don't convert or capitalize on first downs?
What do you mean by capitalize on first down? Like get 5 yards or something?
Yeah. Put you in a good position.
In a good position. Yeah, I understand. I mean, does it affect it? I mean, not really, because you have second down. So you would want to be in a like 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 6. You want to, but that's just not what happened tonight. We just got to come out tomorrow, watch film, and then just worry about the Browns next week.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
We're not looking for comfort or excuses. The tape is who we are at this juncture. And so we're going to work to change the tape that we have control over. That tape's in the bin. That's his, it's mine, it's ours. Monday night is a little bit different, and that's why we're working.
Mike Tomlin opened his press conference talking about stinking out the joint, and this is a stench that stays with you until you change it, and that's what they got to do on Monday night, but they're going to do it without some significant people. By the way, Cleveland lost Jack Conklin, a guy they gave 4 years, $60 million to, so that's a big loss for their offensive line, albeit he's missed some games against the Steelers. What he represents there is big. And as far as the Steelers, in case you missed it, Missy has the update.
Yeah, Cam Hayward is going to have surgery for that groin injury. Coach Tomlin said they don't know how long he'll miss. That will be determined after that. But Deontay Johnson also not going to be able to go this week. He was dealing with a hamstring, so it doesn't sound like as significant of time missed as Cam, but still not a good thing. Also, Chuks Okorafor is in the concussion protocol, and then Larry Ogunjobi, who was dealing with a foot injury heading into week 1, and James Daniels, coach just said bumps and bruises, and Pat Freiermuth with that in-game chest injury. Those are guys who will probably be limited in the early portions of the week, being that it's a Monday night game.
And whenever it's Monday night, it's a big night in Pittsburgh. Whenever it's the Browns, it is certainly big. So I would expect the Steelers to really respond. None of them could have liked what happened on Sunday. It was one of those games, but we saw a lot of those kind of mismatched games in the first week of the season. I still think teams are getting to know themselves, especially after a limited offseason.
And I think, too, Monday night, like you said, the Steelers historically play really well under the lights and being at home. And I just think the stench, as Coach said, of losing week 1 in the manner that they did, that's something that they're going to want to rebound from and get rid of that stench.
Yeah, you don't want to start 0-2, especially with both being at home, so it's a big game for the Steelers. They will come out and try to take care of business against the Browns, and while that's going on Sunday, it's going to be the Ravens and the Bengals in Cincinnati. So we'll find out what both those teams have to happen. Early on, some headbanging in the AFC North. That's going to do it for us. For Missy Matthews, I'm Bob Pompiani. Thanks for joining us here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms. We'll do it again next Tuesday after the Steelers and Browns on Monday.